Well, why don't we'll try to get underway. I'm sorry. My name is Walt Lastos. I'm with the Cooperative Credit Union Association. Welcome. This isn't the first time we're doing something like this. We go back a while doing this, pre-pandemic, I guess we could say.
6 years.
Yeah, but the main concern is that the more we look at elder financial exploitation, the more we realize it's just going haywire. It's going crazy. And it's very, very important that we all stay up to date on the latest scams, frauds, what to do in case of, rules and regulations that govern what we do as credit union staffers, so that we can take care of our membership and, most important, protect that segment of the society that's so vulnerable right now to financial scams and frauds. Just think of your grandparents or even your parents, and somebody tried to rip them off for like $20,000. How you would feel. I mean, I've encountered it. I've seen it in my family. I've also seen it with a lot of the seniors I've worked with, and it's heart-wrenching. It really is. So I think anything we could do to help fight that is worth our call as credit union advocates and credit union supporters. With me as our presenters, Sunny Mulligan-Shea is with the New Hampshire Attorney General's Office. Cheryl Steinberg is with New Hampshire Legal Assistance. They'll be presenting today to all of us and sharing their expertise. But before we kick off, I'd like, if we can, for our presenters to, we're also being joined online by a number of folks that can't make it in person. But if we could just go around the room so that both Sunny and Cheryl could hear who you are, what your role is at the credit union, what credit union you work with, so we get a feel of the audience we're working with.
Sure, I'm Kimberly Beck. I'm with St. Mary's Bank, Elm Street Branch Manager.
Hi, I'm Laura Devano. I manage the Hanover Street branch of St. Mary's Bank.
Pam McKinnon, Regional Manager at St. Mary's Bank.
Jessica Emerson, Manager of the Nashua Spruce Street office, St. Mary's.
I'm Amy Gauthier. I'm the manager at Hudson for St. Mary's.
I'm Lauren Langdon. I'm the manager in our PW Highway office at St. Mary's.
Shel Jordan, manager of McGregor Street, St. Mary's Bank.
Tammy McKenna, manager at Perimeter Road, St. Mary's Bank.
Good morning, Damien Gunther, Regional Manager for St. Mary's Bank.
Sherry Reynolds, manager for Londonderry.
Jillian Green, financial investigator for St. Mary's Bank.
Erica Sullivan, I'm the assistant vice president of retail operations with Bellwether Complete Credit Union.
Karen Stark, vice president of operations MBSA for Bellwether Complete Credit Union.
And our nurse attendee unit.
Hi, my name is Meredith Michelle. I'm the compliance officer for Northeast Credit Union.
Beautiful. Well, welcome, everyone. Before we kick off, I'd like to share a video that was part of a 60 Minutes broadcast. I think it will set the stage for today. It's about a 10-minute or so video, I think, or segment. But it's worth looking at to kind of set the stage for our understanding of what we're all up against. So if you just bear with me, I'm going to run it here, and I'm going to run it for our folks that are with us online. It's a little scary, isn't it? When you see it, particularly with AI and what's going on. So I think the more we can prepare ourselves, the more educated we could be, I think the better kind of defense and offense, so to speak, that we could offer as well. One of the things that we all have realized over the course of the years of doing what we do is that the best way to combat this kind of fraud is education. That's the number one tool. The more we can get out in front of the seniors, the more we can educate folks about all of this and how to protect oneself. That's the best defense we have. And with that, I'll turn it over to our presenters.
Thank you. And if any of you are really liking this stuff, National Geographic has a great show out there. It's documentary and it's called Trafficked. And there's segments, and one of them is about the Jamaican lottery, and it's really pretty scary to watch, to be honest with you. But it's kind of cool to watch too. Gives you a sense of how they think and how they target. So just as another piece of information. So by way of introduction, I am Sunny Mulligan. I'm with the Attorney General's Office. I'm a victim advocate for the Elder Abuse and Exploitation Unit. So Cheryl and I tag team because I do criminal work and she does the civil work. So we don't touch anything that's not criminal, and they have to be over 60 years old for us to take the case in our unit. By background, I am a lawyer, and I've been working in advocacy for quite a while, but the Attorney General's invited me on when in 2015, a law was enacted to, regarding exploitation of the elderly. I apologize for using elderly, but it is the law, okay? We're meant to be using aging, and we're meant to, there's all these older adults, but our statute is out, it talks about elder, so I apologize in advance. So they started the unit in 2016 in response to this particular law, because we had now a law that criminalized some of the behavior, and we needed to be able to combat that. So they brought on Brandon Garage and myself to start that unit. Since then, Brandon's become, he's moved up the ladder. I can't remember his title, but he's the head of the Consumer Protection Bureau. And Brian Townsend has moved into the spot. And just so you all know, Brian and I and Cheryl and her organization are always willing to be a resource for your credit unions and that type of a thing. So my work is as a victim advocate. I have to comply with the Victims' Bill of Rights, which means when we prosecute these cases, that we will keep our victims informed about what's going on in the criminal process, and we'll give them a voice as much as they want to have one. We also help them get prepared if they have to come and testify at trial. We coordinate sort of witnesses and victims and things like that. But they're entitled to dignity and respect in these proceedings, and that's a big part of my job. We also make sure that they're signed up for notification when we prevail and the person goes off to prison. We like to make sure that they know the status of that prisoner going forward. So they're entitled to that as well. We help them write victim impact statements. So that's the one time in this whole process that they can say whatever they want. We ask them to leave out the swearing. Sometimes they comply, sometimes they don't, but that's okay. And we just go, oh, sorry. So they do get to have a voice in that criminal process. And as I said, if we prevail at the end of the trial, they get to speak to the court about how it impacted them. It resonated for me here with this grandparent scam, and I'll be talking more about it. But when I did victim impact statements recently for a victim of a grandparent scam that we did prosecute, she said she lost her faith in humanity. She'd been a trusting person. She found it hard to trust, and she thought that she had a handle on it, and now she felt she'd lost control of her world, which was really devastating to hear. So that just gives you a sense, these folks, you guys are the first frontline workers. You're gonna, in the banks, you're seeing these people every day. Sometimes you will be the very first people to identify that something is going awry, so. And Cheryl?
It's hard to follow that, but I'm Cheryl Steinberg. I'm the director of the Justice and Aging Project for New Hampshire Legal Assistance. For those of you who aren't familiar with New Hampshire Legal Assistance, it's a statewide civil legal aid program where we serve low-income and older people with civil legal problems, and we'll talk about differences between civil and criminal. The Justice and Aging Project in particular focuses on persons 60 years of age and older, and that's a function of the funding that we receive. I mean, I don't necessarily, being over 60 myself, I'm not sure, I feel like I'm an elderly person, but for purposes of our project, it does depend, I suppose. We have, New Hampshire Legal Assistance in general assists with a wide range of issues, including housing is a big thing if people are being illegally evicted or their home is being foreclosed on improperly. We have a domestic violence project. We help people that have been improperly terminated from public benefits or gaining or denied public benefits. And then specifically with my project, we focus on some areas that specifically impact older people, financial exploitation being one of them, and also long-term care facility type issues. So if people are being improperly discharged or transferred from a nursing home or assisted living facility, and certainly consumer issues involving assisted living facilities, and then some debt collection practices, illegal abuse of debt collection practices. So that's mostly what we focus on in my project, but we still help people 60 and older with those other areas I mentioned as well. And yes, so
what we'll try and cover today, and we'll have to fly through some of it, but it's demographic and statistics, the the methods of financial exploitation that we see. I see some types, Cheryl sees others. Potential perpetrators, which is a little horrifying sometimes when you think people are trusted and they're not. And the telltale signs you might see of someone who is being exploited as they come up to your bank or they come to talk to you about, say, a large withdrawal. And then there's the different ways to respond. So in 2023, they brought a statistic, but in 2023, ARP reported that 28.3 million stolen from seniors annually. They refer to seniors as 65 and above. New Hampshire is specific. Seniors are 60 and above. New Hampshire is the second oldest state in the country. And right now it's projected that in 2030, I believe it is, 30% of our population will be over 60 years old. So this isn't something that's going away. This is a real growing issue. So the census population, this gives you statistics that are just really, really helpful. Increased numbers of older adults will result in increased incidence, obviously, of this exploitation, and it's a ripe market in New Hampshire. We are busy. So what is it? It's the illegal or improper use of income or assets of an older adult. So is there any scams you folks haven't seen at this point, by the way? So we deal with the methods of exploitation obviously are all the scams. And when we think we finally have a handle on it, there's a new one comes down the pike, I'll be really honest with you. And we just have to get up in gear and be ready to address it. There's theft, coercion, and fraud. There's undue influence, which is that threatening type of a stuff. It might be from a family member. And abuse of a legal authority, like power of attorney, trust of a trustee, trustee of a trust, things like that. Anyone that has sort of a legal authority bestowed upon them. So the scams, romance scams, I go out and talk to people in their homes to try and talk them out of it. Am I successful? Sometimes, sometimes not. Until the next month when the Social Security check comes in and they call them again and have the new sob story. These are the most heartbreaking ones for me because when I go out, they think they're so in love and I break their hearts and I break their hand because I let them know no money is coming back. But I do go out with police officers, I go out with adult protective services to meet with these people personally to see if we can get them out of the system. I got a call, I got someone out of it. She actually did get out of it. And she just called me. I'd been out there 9 months ago. She called me, she says, so Sunny. I'm like, oh, what? She goes, I'm talking to him again. I said, no. But she called to ask some questions. And she actually has assured me she has not sent him any more money, and she is not sending him any more money, but she's, and he talks to her. So we have that. We have the IRS scam. We have the IRS scam, by the way, the new twist on that is, and I don't know if you have encountered this because now we're past April 15th. Now they get the call that tells them there actually is a return coming to them that they didn't know about. And all they need is their bank account number or possibly a small fee in order to do the transaction. So it's like the next step. It's always like, there's always another step on that. The text scams you saw on Amazon, when I first started the Attorney General's, my computer blew up when, you've got a virus, you've got a virus. And Brandon, who is young enough to be my son, came and said, what did you do now? And I was like, so started plugging everything, but it was the most horrifying thing. I cannot imagine being 80, sitting with my iPad and having it blow off on me, honestly. And how would I respond? I have no idea. So that's that. The lottery scam, as we've said, it's still alive and well. You'd think it wouldn't be, but the Jamaican lottery scam is alive and well. When you talk to your customers or members, let them know that international lotteries are illegal. And that might be a starting point. They're just illegal in the United States. Because do you all remember, do any of you remember the Irish hospital sweepstakes? It was rampant in this country, and it was totally illegal. But it was very, very popular. The grandparent scam, we have managed to prosecute, very similar to what you saw on that 2020 clip. We have managed for 60 minutes, but we did manage to prosecute 2 of those couriers who came into the state of New Hampshire. 6.5 years ago, when we started this, going around talking to people, we used to be able to say, don't worry, they're never going to come to your house. You're never going to see them. They're getting very bold and they are sending couriers. We did arrest and had 14 victims on that case. But it wasn't 6 months later that they were hitting Dunbarton and they did not catch those folks. So it's going on still, but now they're sending people. They're getting very brazen, very bold, and it's very frightening to me. And then Publishers Clearinghouse, you all know, but I don't know if you do know that, you know, when they show on TV the van and the balloons, that's exactly how they do it. No one sends letters, no one sends photos. They actually do arrive with the van and the balloons. That's the only way they give out the big prize. So if anyone comes in saying, well, it's just a fee, I won, you can pull it up on any search engine and you can show them it's not how it works. Nobody sends pictures. One poor woman in Manchester had a picture of the vice president signed on her refrigerator because they had a close relationship because she was making so much money. It was horrible. So the Amazon phishing schemes, we're seeing a lot of those. We're also seeing, you know, where they're just sort of saying, oh, there's a problem, you just need to click. And it's when they access those internal links that are fake and lead them into someone trying to get information, trying to get into their bank information, trying to get anything. We also have Amazon package schemes, which is people calling saying, we've got one of your packages at the border and it's connected with criminal activity. And all you need to do is pay a small fee. And people have been billed for thousands on that. Identity theft, we'll go into more of that, but basically we're talking to people a lot. It's just that stealing of identity, which you folks see all the time, where someone steals someone's stuff in their mailbox, giving them all, say, bank information or whatever, Medicaid information, any information they can get. They are stealing stuff from mailboxes, they're stealing stuff from online. Brian and I sat with one woman who was going, well, how would they have so much information? As we're talking to Brian's online, they said, so did you graduate from such and such a place in such and such a year? Well, yeah, and did you live in such and such a space? Yeah, and did you, and he asked her a litany of questions. He found it all by just Googling her name, you know? And so if you guys want to do a major service, do something for your members on how to shut down their social settings on their computers. You'll save yourselves a lot of time and heartache. The charity scams, when you're talking to folks, if they're talking about giving to a charity, they can go online and check at the charitables unit at the New Hampshire Attorney General's office to see if they're legit. You have to register as a charity in New Hampshire. Charity said to me last week, and make sure they check to see if they're in good standing. There's actually a checkbox to see if they're in good standing. But these folks the charities are really, really maximizing on every tragedy we have. So Ukraine, they really maximized on fake scams for that one. They maximize on any storm, any flood, any hurricane. They will use that and they will create fake organizations. So when someone comes in and they're talking about it, maybe direct them to the charitables unit at the Attorney General's office. And then there's the unsolicited work or home improvement scam. Oh, I'm paving down the road. If you just want to come on up. If you want me to come on up, I'll use the end of my wares or whatever you want to call them, and I'll, finish paving your driveway, or I'll finish your roof, or I'll do whatever. Sometimes they actually come and just do half of it and say, oh, I ran out of materials, you'll have to pay me another $5,000 to finish it. Or sometimes they just never show. It's one or the other. So we have not been seeing as much of that, but I know it's still out there. So theft, coercion, or fraud. Do you want to do this?
Sure, I mean, it's just all these things. I guess one thing I want to point out, right, these aren't necessarily scams, and, we hear a lot, and scams are a growing problem, and as we know, but statistically, for financial exploitation, 2/3 of the exploitation is done by family members or persons in a position of trust, and that's where the bigger money is more than even the scams, so just keep that in mind. So, and that's what happens in a variety of ways. So it could be forging someone's just to get access to their checkbook and forging their name on it, just stealing things out of their house, using credit cards. I mean, this happens, I think a bit too, like they'll say, oh, the person might say, well, here, you can use my credit card to buy this one thing. And next thing you know, they've charged, all kinds of other things that they really didn't have any authority to charge on. Deceiving people into signing documents they don't understand what they're signing, and I talk to people all the time where that happens. They did not understand that they signed a deed to giving their house away. It's like,
one of my victims bought a house for her son. So,
And then borrowing money, right, and I think that's another one, like, I really need this money, Mom, please, and they don't ever pay it back. I mean, and sometimes it isn't all premeditated, but I do think, there's all kinds of factors that go into this, and substance abuse can be an issue and things like that, and they just take advantage, and,
the stealing stuff too, the taking people's checks, we've also seen that with caretakers going into homes.
Yeah.
And it's that access is there, and I will say 99.9% of the caretakers in homes are probably just the most wonderful people.
Right.
But the bad ones
Yeah.
can do a lot of damage. We also have seen them in nursing homes and memory care units, because they're good targets, frankly. And a lot of family members will say to us, well, we left Mom's bag with her because it's a comfort thing. That's her autonomy. She likes to look through her bag, and she likes to look at her license, and she likes to, all those things. It's just a comfort thing. She's carried her bag with her whole life. So we see some of that too.
yeah.
But Cheryl's right, in our caseload, most of it is family members who are stealing some of their parents or grandparents.
With the increased family members, what are your thoughts on the trusted contact?
We were just talking about it. I said,
Yeah, we were
I
gonna
didn't
bring
put
that up.
trusted contacts on the slide. Please, if you, I don't know if all of you have it yet, but when someone opens their account, you can absolutely do it. It would be, we want to see someone where you can call, that trusted person you can actually call. Are you saying, what if they're not as trusted as they should be?
Well, my credit union, we're starting to look into it. We aren't doing it yet, but we're seeing so much, data and articles about it. We should do this, we should do this. And we're like, well, what if they're the bad person? Like, what do we do?
Do you know Fidelity? Deb Nuri at Fidelity, she does investigations and fraud stuff. She's a great resource. She shared it with our FAST committee.
Yep.
And we encourage it. We just think, yeah, they might be a bad person, but it's not that you're giving them access. It just means that you can contact them if you're concerned.
Sure.
And that, Mom is suddenly there taking out $30,000 because the grandson is in the car crash with the pregnant woman. And by the way, in that story, the baby usually dies, and that's the next deposit. So you would encourage
I think so. I mean, the thing is, there's nothing that's 100% foolproof. I mean, and we're going to talk about powers of attorneys, which are, generally speaking, a good thing to have. But unfortunately, if they get in the wrong hands, then they're a bad thing. But you can't say we should just get rid of powers of attorneys. So I think it's the good outweighing the bad. Yeah. So undue influence. Yes. So this is a tactic that's used a lot, and this is more in the family member, person in position of trust category, where they do foster this relationship, and then end up taking advantage of the person to get control over their assets and money. And they can use a lot of the tactics. I mean, a lot of times what it is, and I'll give you, actually, I have a good example right now of how this works, and we just got involved with this case and haven't done anything else. But it's true that sometimes it's very insidious, and the victim themselves don't even understand it's happening, and they'll even be defending the perpetrator, like, no, they're my friend, they're, so it's something that that a lot of times like I said, the victim himself doesn't even know that it's happening, and it's a very, but it can cause a lot of damage, and it's a lot of manipulation is involved. So like the example I would give is this woman that, I think she's not that old, but she's had some cognitive issues over her life, and her mother was helping her out, taking care of her, and I think helping with her finances, and the mother, had a fair amount of resources, and that there was a trust, and I think the woman, her son, the daughter was a trustee, but I think there's other people that were also involved to try to help protect the assets, and this mother also owned a mobile home park. Well, this woman had a lot of trauma. Her son died, it was very traumatic for her, and then the mother died. Well, this distant relative got involved. And next thing you know, him and the girlfriend, now the wife, and the kids all move in, and they're her best friend, and everything is great, and they're helping. Over a course of I don't know, 6 months even, it didn't even take that long. I mean, she started to turn over all this stuff, like she gave him authority to, move his assets. I think he also improperly signed over authority on the trust to his girlfriend. He started withdrawing all of her assets and spending all the money. He again sold the house they were living in and then took those proceeds to buy this house in another place in his name only. And then he convinced her to sell the mobile home park that's worth, a lot of money to him for this deal that he never even, he was supposed to pay her a certain amount of money every month, and he wasn't doing that. So, we're looking into that now, but that's an extreme example. But, it's actually kind of a textbook example of how someone can be taken advantage of. She was definitely very vulnerable. This guy totally knew it, and she happened to have a lot of money. So, there's just, and she was basically left homeless. She was able to get a ride to the police station, and then some friend picked her up and took her in. Now she is living in a room in a friend's house, and she got on Social Security, but she has no money right now. She has nothing other than her Social Security. So that's undue influence.
And we see this as well. One of the cases we prosecuted was a fellow who was living with his dad. He was there with his wife to take care of them.
Yeah.
And he went to a doctor's appointment, and it was quite interesting that as soon as there was dementia and not able to take care of your own everyday living skills, that the money started going up. And it's kind of a slippery slope. It's like it starts with little stuff. Oh, well, he always bought the groceries. And then it's, oh, well, he wanted us to go to the Red Sox game. And, oh, yeah, no, he really did.
It starts out small.
It starts small often, and then as the decline of the elder person goes on, the spending goes up. And it's by the family member generally. So the common taxes, they do create fear. A lot of times there'll be things that I'll go with family members. Usually they will isolate them from other family members. So you might see someone who used to come into you and they were always chatting and everything else, and now the family member's always with them. And they can isolate them also by saying, they'll just think you're crazy. I'll just put you in a nursing home.
Yes.
I will lock you up, and no one is going to believe anything you say anyways. The person is often very dependent also on this family member. And so they're like, they're afraid that, what about, I don't know how to do my own medication. I don't know how to do my banking. I don't know how to do, and they do everything for me, and they really don't mind. And then, so there's that aspect. And it creates slowly this lack of ability of the police. They can't do it for themselves anymore because only Johnny can do it right. There's also, who wants to say that their kid is a horrible person, and that's sort of a factor. And sometimes they'll come and talk to us, and then we say the felony word, and oh my God, now they really don't want to talk about it, so, because it's a felony, and that's what we charge them with. So there's that shame, they don't want to talk about it. This is a generation, I would say 70 and above, who are very secretive anyways. It's a family matter, we don't get the police involved. One little lady here in Manchester said to me once, it took me a year to get her to talk to the police. And she finally said, I said, why didn't you want the police to come to your house? And she goes, we're not that kind of a family, Sonny. She says, the police don't come to our house. And so thank goodness now for community policing that they're getting out there and they are going to the senior centers and they are going to the different community events, and it's become more open and talking. But that was an issue for this person. And there's also, just the whole thing of they are kind to them in moments. And then this person lives for those moments of kindness. But they also know that right now they're very dependent on these people.
Oh, can I just, the isolation piece, did you touch on that? Because actually in the case I was just talking about, that's the other thing they did is they actually shut down her Facebook page. I think they took her phone away. She had no way so these people that the mother had tried to set up to help look over her weren't able to communicate with her. When they came by the house, this bad actor would say, she doesn't want to see you, and if you keep coming by here, I'm gonna, get a restraining order or whatever. He was threatening them. So she was totally cut off from all her support system on top of it.
We see that in a lot of the cases where they'll call, the other siblings will be saying, well, we just want to come see Dad. Well, he doesn't want to see you right now. He's tired. He's sleeping. He's this, and they slowly isolate them, and then they have to make appointments, and then it becomes more and more difficult, and it becomes so contentious they can't stop. because it's too contentious, because the police are getting called on and things like that, so they create that isolation.
So that's another important thing. It's a huge red flag if you.
Yeah.